Hello, everybody. This is William del Pilar, and this is the Red, White, and Rude. Well, I just lied to you. Actually, this is a rude clip. This segment here was supposed to be done on Red, White, and Rude episode 37. It's a great episode. I have Hody Johns there. We did not see eye to eye, but we were very polite to one another, trying to see each other's views. Since it's my show, I deem myself the winner, and I was right. I'm kidding quite a bit. But we were going to talk about Avowed, the game, on that show, but we ran out of time. I'm a marketing business guy. I understand the yins and yangs of podcasts is going too long or too short. So I said, let's pull this into a clip. Hody has actually played the game. I do a lot of talking on the cultural aspects of gaming, the gaming world now. But Hody is going to give us a bit of his thoughts on the actual game itself. We're going to talk about what's led to the tribalism with Avowed. Is the game actually woke? Spoiler alert, I don't think so. Or is it the inmates running the asylum that has created this battle? Spoiler alert, that's what I think it is. But we're going to get Hody's thoughts. It's not going to be a long podcast. We're going to get down to the nitty and gritty. And with that, I want to welcome my guest, Mr. Hody Johns. Hody, how you doing, brother?
I am doing well. How are you doing today?
I am pretty good. And for those of you who see his background go, holy mackerel, that's awesome, check out Red, White, and Rude 37, where he talks about that in depth. And then even then, I'm so dumb, he explained one character, and I'm like, what's Lex Luthor doing back there? That's what he's talking to you about. Hitman number 47.
All good.
Does Hitman 47 have an actual name? Bob? Is it Bob?
No, it's just 47.
It's not Bob, Leroy, Joe. All right, Hody, let's get right on into it. Let's talk about Avowed. As I said, I wanted to cover 3 topics with Avowed. The actual gameplay, which you have graciously already played. And for the record, Hody's going to tell us a bit about himself at the end, but he writes for Game Rant. He is old school. Hody is not mixed into the battle of influencers versus gaming magazines, but by technicality, he's in the middle of it. And my point being is, being a game reviewer, he has to play the game. So we're in luck here. He's going to talk to us about the game. Then we're going to talk about and Hody can address this. Is there any wokeism in the game? You know, and then we're going to talk about what has caused this game, because sadly, Hody, I don't think this game is going to turn the profit Microsoft expects. And I think it could be a black eye for Obsidian, who gave us what is now seen as one of the most legendary modern games in Fallout New Vegas. Real quick, I don't want to get into a conversation about it, but did you play Fallout New Vegas? And if you did, your quick thoughts on it.
Rightfully considered one of the best games of all time. One of the quick thought, it's just the amount of player control over the story is great. And the fact that there isn't a distinct right and wrong, I think, are the biggest successes of Fallout New Vegas. And we have, outside of a few games like Dragon Age Origins, I've had a very difficult time seeing that. Most of the time, at the very least, you have a good or evil meter on the side someplace. You have a very distinct, like, best ending, right thing to do. As opposed to very gray area, thought-provoking the whole time. And I think that was Obsidian at its absolute best. I don't think they've hit it since. We'll get into that later. But those
all right. So why are conservatives taking the page from the left's own playbook, turning boycotts into a megaphone? Think Battlefield 5. That's it. I'm trying to think which Battlefield V or 5. Don't buy it. Flop heard around the world. That seems to be the battle going into this game. So we're going to crack open Avowed. Again, Obsidian of legendary fame. And let's get right to it. Mr. Hody, I've never done a game review from the perspective of having played it. You know all the sections and types, like it does well in this mechanic, that. So I'm going to just turn this portion here over to you. Talk to us about the game. Break it down however you feel, sir.
Sure. If I was to sell the game, I would just say it's a first-person action-adventure high fantasy game. If you liked Skyrim, it is a lot like that, with a more limited world. There are no technically open areas, but there are very large areas to explore. And I would say if you have played the Pillars of Eternity games, it is set in that fantasy setting. So if you enjoyed those, enjoyed the lore there. If you haven't, really not a big deal. In fact, I would argue one of the weakest points of the game is a little bit too much hand-holding, a little too much over-explanation of like, this is this guy with this emissary group, and you're just like, okay, got it, right? Like, they're not very subtle with that. So if you're worried about being lost, don't. I think I fall in line with the other reviews on this one. It's funny, we talked in the episode about Failguard, which is either a 10 out of 10 or a 1 out of 10 for most people, right? This is a game that I think is going to be a comfortable 7.5 to 8 out of 10 for most people. It is really not that controversial. It's fun. There are games that do it better in various aspects of it. But if you've played it, I would relate a lot to the Outer Worlds, another Obsidian game. That it's like, it's a good game. There's no moment where you're just going to be like, this is going to consume my life now. It's the greatest. But I also would say there's no moment where you're just like, I can't come back to this game. I'm tired, right? I'm done with this.
Well, Hody, in my research, what I read from a conservative point of view, Avowed isn't the woke in terms of screaming, indoctrinate the kid sense. It's got a diverse faces and hints at LGBT flavor, but it's not Cyberpunk 2077. I guess they had trans ads or Life is Strange with the teen queer drama. It's more closer to The Witcher. Its mature themes exist, but they're optional. They're not the point. In essence, what I'm trying to say is it appears the game is not driving an activist woke message. It's got a broad world, just like Earth, with various characters, but they're not pushing that to the forefront as much as this is a game that about combat, about swords, spells, guns. You know, that's the forefront. Is my research aligning with what you're getting out of playing the game?
Yeah. So William, obviously, you're right wing solidly, but not far right. And so I think if you are far right, you can't see pronouns and not freak out, right? Like this was the heels versus baby face, right? If you can't see pronouns and freak out, or if you hear the presence of a gay couple, then you're out, right? Like most people aren't like that. They just don't. Most people, I would say, on the right, not far right, but just regular right, are fine with a gay couple as long as they don't discuss their partner in detail or their relationship, right? Like in detail. As long as they play a background to straight is the norm, but yeah, they're just there as like a token, it's okay, right? Like as long as we don't have to get to the ins and outs of their relationship or something like that. And really, to me, that's kind of where Avowed is at. There are a few gay characters that you can think that you can dig up. There is not a non-binary to what I could tell, and I actually do all the side content. Like a lot of people skip that. I did it all.
Yeah.
I don't recognize like the presence of a trans character. There are like this kingdom's fighting that kingdom, and there are some racial overtones there, but like nothing, like it's like stupid elf, which doesn't come off as like, let's talk about how elves are actually superior, or like, you know, that kind of thing.
Let me jump in. See, that's the best way to deal with racism. If you put it in black and white or Asian, whatever, you're dealing, I think it hits too close to home, and that's where the divide comes. Man, if you portray it as the elves, orcs, things like that, you're able to get your message across because you see the wrong being had there. Now, people may say, hey, that shouldn't matter. Maybe it shouldn't, but but when you put it in specific cultures, you're going to identify specifically with that one culture. When you put it in something you're not related with, you're going to look at the situation and what's really happening. So I love it when games do that. That's how you educate. That's how you evolve. That's how you teach young kids acceptance of everyone. But so that said, talk to me about the storyline and then the mechanics. Let's start with the mechanics of the game. Is it tough to learn? And real quick, I will push back on hand holding. These games are uber expensive, hundreds of millions of dollars now. Hand holding helps when you bring a new audience in. If I can't grasp that great gameplay, Madden, I bought every Madden game. Then now it's like you have to have a damn encyclopedia to figure out all the moves you can make with the buttons. So I do love the hand holding because that's not your market. That's like, we get it. You're not going to be happy. You don't need it, but don't be a b-hole. You just ignore it and play the game. It's for people like me. And it's not really for discussion, just a different thought in terms from the business perspective. But what are your thoughts on the mechanics of the game and then the storyline?
Yeah, mechanics I would say are good. There are a lot of people, and I agree with them, that this is one of the best feeling spellcaster games that we've had. Now, I would say like graphically, like fire spells have been done better before, and like, you know, we've maybe seen like cooler spells and lightning spells. But when it comes down to like holding the dagger and like a spell book in the other hand, it feels very natural. It comes off really great. I'm sorry if I implied I didn't mean to that it was I didn't like the simplicity. I rather enjoyed the game.
I like to explain to the audience. And here's my fellow gamer who I game with when I
go. Looks like a good buddy right there. It was down to watch you play and never asked for their turn with the controller, which that's my favorite.
Exactly. And they never judge me.
Right, and no judgment. I fall off a cliff, they're fine, right? Yeah, I think the gameplay really good. The lighting's pretty good. I like the musical soundtrack actually a lot. Yeah. What was it you just asked? Sorry.
The storyline.
So this is one that is. So here's the trouble with the storyline. I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but if I don't spoil anything, kind of some major things happen very early into the game, and it's very difficult for me to talk about the rest of the game if I, you know, without addressing a lot of it. I will say a lot of the voice revolves around what I would go down to, like, sorry.
Let me put it this way. Yeah. Gaming has had two aisles. There's not really a storyline. It's just for the action and to play it and nobody cares or this or that. There's no depth. Is there depth to the storyline? So you don't make any giveaways. Is the storyline something you will become engrossed in, or is it more just about swords and sorcery, killing people, spells, etc.? Let's take it from that perspective.
Yeah, I would say. Sorry, I can't.
Yeah, I hear you now.
Oh, sorry. I guess I jiggled the wire a little bit. Yeah, so I would say the storyline is the weakest part of the game. It is over-explained, as I kind of mentioned. It is a little ham-fisted. Now, not ham-fisted about making like a point. So thankfully, you're not going to feel like you're sitting in class and getting lectured to. But there are points where you will, I think in like a 3-hour session, you will hear like 2 hours worth of like kind of expositionary dialogue. And there are moments like that, and that is rough. I have no problem with dialogue, right? Like, but when it's exposition, when it's just like, let me tell you the history of this thing. And sometimes that history has nothing to do with your current events. Like there's no impact there for any of this. So I do think that the storyline's the weakest part of the game.
So a couple of points before we get into briefly the conservative side of it in terms of so what I'm hearing is it's a decent game. However, and real quick, I'm like you. I do not like this behemoth games because I'm too anal. I do every quest. I do everything. So a game that will take somebody a month to play will take me 6 months because I'm doing every single thing. So that's why I've never played Skyrim. I'm like, I don't have my life to give this game. But there's a lot of comparisons to Skyrim. They're saying it's not Skyrim. Skyrim's 14 years old and it's still better. And somebody said it best. Well, the problem is Avowed is under the microscope. Back then, games weren't under the microscope as much because we didn't have all this social media. What are your thoughts on the comparison to Skyrim? And then I want to shift right into conservatives might be mistaken here. Skyrim wasn't pure because it dodged politics. It just didn't have today's spotlights. And that even though gaming has skewed left since the mid-2000s, Avowed isn't the hill for conservatives to die on. So let's talk about the Skyrim. Then this isn't the hill for conservatives to die on in terms of saying this is woke, etc., etc.
Yeah, the central plot in Skyrim involves politics. it's all about occupation and colonialism, and of course you've got the DEI characters and everything. So I'm not sure what that's about. As far as Avowed goes, so obviously there was some controversy because the art director said like I want like less crusty old white dudes or something like that from in the game. There are pronouns at the beginning. There is at least one gay couple that I'm aware of. There is no protagonist romance, which is a little bit odd for this type of game. Most of the time you'd think you would get something. They actually decide not to do romance in the Outer Worlds, though, as well. So I guess that's just something Obsidian's not comfortable doing anymore. So You don't have to worry about like, is my character gay or straight or anything like that. There's nothing like that. I would say if you went into it expecting it to be woke, especially based on the art direction, like, and you wanted something that was like a little bit cutting edge and liberal, you're going to be disappointed. You have to really search for it. And I think if you were going into it as a conservative and you saw it ping on all these, obviously the YouTubers and everything like that, pinging out like, hey, this is going to be woke and it's going to be liberal or something, you would also be disappointed to miss out on this game if you if you enjoyed Skyrim, because I would have a tough time getting offended unless I was on the far right.
Right. Okay. So it sounds like this game is a victim not of the company pushing values, but of art director Matt Hansen, meaning what I call the inmates running the asylum, meaning they're slicing their own throats because they see themselves as martyrs fighting for this cause, not realizing you're undercutting your own ability to feed your family and for a company to stay in business. Microsoft can stay in business, but let's be honest, Hody, they've shut down over the last 30 years. You combine various conglomerates, and they've shut down hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of studios because the game their specialty on does not sell. Obsidian will not be any different. Their big hit is Legendary, but that was what, 20, 30 years ago now? So, and the reason I say that, Matt Hansen bragged on Blue Sky. Blue Sky is a leftist social media platform, just like Truth Social is a far right platform. Blue Sky talked about making Elon mad, making the pissing them off, giving the impression it's a woke game, etc., etc., etc. And they got into a bit of a war. And your classic, you are racist, idiots, this or that. So it sounds like the inmates are making this game worse for a conservative in terms of how they perceive it than it actually is. So, for example, my first take is, yeah, hey, Matt, man, you can say all that. That's fine. Avowed is off my to playlist. Your thought, is that what really happened here?
No, I don't think that story was big enough to really dissuade most people. I've mentioned that it pinged on, of course, the woke content director list, or detector list. The thing is like other games on that list, Elden Ring's on that list. You know what I mean? Like, there's just, it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah,
and so,
developers, Hody, did the developers come out and bash the one side? To me, what I'm asking is, and I think this is influence. I think the conservatives have learned how to boycott. So I think this is a very important topic in terms of sales. There are tens of there are literally millions now when you combine all the conservative influencers, and that I believe, with no proof, that can impact. But what I'm saying is that these other studios, it seems there's, and I'm speculating here, but I'm because it's Anecdotal, Star Wars Outlaw, Dragon Age, The Veil Guard, a few other games where the developers or the actors in them have come out and bashed the conservative. Go take a hike. We don't need you. You put with Kotaku saying the same thing, and that's what happened here with Matt Hansen. And to me, it's like a little comment has blown up, and that's what I see happening. You're saying that's wrong. I kind of don't buy it. So I mean, did that happen with their studio? Did the devs, the art directors, the actors, did they badmouth the game? And Elden is the one that came out 2 or 3 years ago. It was a massive hit, right?
Elden Ring, yeah, it was game of the year, and yeah, I mean, it's huge. I mean, the reason I bring those up is because the woke content director, while we can say like conservatives do really well at boycotting these games, I mean, every game of the year for the past 10 years, and in fact, God of War Ragnarok, Sweet Baby Inc., right? Like, I mean, this is like, there is a lot of stuff that did not obviously get boycotted or banned or whatever. If you make a good enough game, people are going to get over little things. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is their latest to trigger the detector. It's doing great. Yeah.
I got to put back. God of War was already hit, and there was no wokeness in the first iteration, nor do I remember the second iteration in terms, and we were living in a different era. Social media wasn't as prevalent. I think God of War, they'll always sell, is my point. Like Halo. I'm not talking woke, just the bad mouthing the Bungie Studios and 343. Halo still sells. I think some of these IPs are going to overcome. it becomes a degree of how many sales. So, for example, Dragon Age: The Veilguard was not on the level of the IPs I just mentioned, but it was an IP, and the sales and this whole wokeness kind of destroyed what was a middling IP in terms of beloved, loved, but the sales weren't online with, say, the Halo or franchises like that. I could be wrong. It's just it just seems the sales are soft right now for Avowed in terms when you compare it to other games of that nature, based off the money put in, based off expectations. And I wonder with Microsoft, at the end of the day, Microsoft is bottom line studio. That's why they've shuttered quite a few studios they bought. There was a point where they shuttered like 9 out of the 10 studios they bought over an X period of years. When I read that article, and it was years ago, I was like, holy mackerel. So I think there's a lot riding on this, and I could be wrong, but I don't want to push back just to disagree. But it's just I think there's a pattern to this.
Sure. I mean, and let's be honest here. I'm sure it pushed some people away, right? And like in an industry where 5-10% makes a big difference. I mean, when we look at the sales at the end of the year, yeah, you need huge chunks to get to number one, but to crack the top 10, sometimes that's just 1%, 2% in sales, right? And then all of a sudden you lose out on 3, 4, 5%. You're falling out of the top 30, you know? So, I mean, it's a big deal. Like, obviously, when we're dealing with millions of dollars like this, and I'm sure this is one of those issues that was probably a multi-million-dollar mistake as far as getting people to not buy the game. I'm certain. I think the issue is I'm just kind of analyzing like how much is like how big of a deal. I think it was millions. I don't think it was enough to like single-handedly flop the game. Like the behavior from the Concord directors is one that we can agree on. Absolutely unacceptable, right? Like I am even trying to be on their side as somebody who is socially, libertarian and for freedom and all that. They're just being jerks, right, to people. They're not being persuaded. Yeah.
What happened? What happened to that studio shortly after Concord?
Oh, they done. They gone. Yeah, I mean.
So let's move on to Steam real quick. Steam is good and bad. It's a picture. It's a snapshot.
Uh-huh.
People try to play it as that's the trend. That's what's happening. But that said, it did better. It topped Steam's U.S. bestseller chart on release. It outpaced Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and Monster Hunter Wilds, the pre-orders. My issue with when I saw the pushback is the side that supports the woke were saying, well, it did better than Dragon's Age, the Veilguard. I'm like, that did not go. That's not the hill that's not the sword you want to use as your champion, because the Dragon Age Veilguard, we were proven right in terms of when I broke the numbers down. But that said, it seems to be doing good on the surface with Steam numbers in terms of how people want to compare it. But when I look at it in Steam numbers and compare it to other top selling franchises, I mean, I'll toss it out there. People hate this, but Black Myth Wukong peaked at 200,000 followers. There's a Skyrim. It's like this game here, Avowed, is like on par with Skyrim, and Skyrim is 14 years old. So let me hear your bottom line on this, because in defense of Avowed, no sales numbers have come out yet. We're looking at trending indicators, and trending indicators most of the time tend to be proven right. What's your bottom? I agree with you. All my research showed there's not wokeism in there outside of it's a big natural world. My belief is this art director took, because he's a jerk and a-hole, he doesn't care about the people cutting him a check, has no respect for his peers at his job, no respect for the company, no respect, wanted to put his message out because he has personal hate towards one side, may have literally destroyed this, because that's what conservatives on our side are doing. They're looking for this and they're magnifying the eye on it. In politics, as you know, you have campaign points. That one little bill may mean nothing, but they're able to blow it up into it's the end of the world. I think that's what happened. I'll give you the last word before we close it out.
Yeah, sure. I think the issue with Avowed when it comes to sales is there are some really negative things here. Like Dragon Age the Veilguard, which did not do as well as they wanted it to do, did about half as well as they wanted it to do. Still, peaked at almost 100,000 players. Avowed's peak is looking like 18,000 and probably sinking from there. That's not a good sign, obviously, with Steam. Now, the other thing with Avowed, now, Veilguard was free on Game Pass, as is this one. So there are probably some people playing it for free. But just when you compare those two side by side, if we're looking at roughly similar sized companies, when we're looking between Obsidian and BioWare, and we're looking at roughly the same time. They've spent a long time producing these games. And if Avowed does what it looks like as at the moment, 1/5 as well as the Veilguard, again, real bad there. That's not the numbers that you really want to go for. And I think it's unfortunate for them. I do think that the sales numbers are a bit of a product of how gamers are playing nowadays. I do think we have to consider the economy. I think most people that care about games have signed up for Game Pass. I'm on Game Pass.
$20.
Right?
Game is
I
$20.
didn't buy either Veilguard or Avowed, right? Because I get these games for free, right? Day one. So there's, hardcore gamers are going to play this regardless. And they do make, of course, some money back on being on those services, no doubt. But we are looking at overall numbers, and they are not looking good. And unfortunately, whereas Veilguard was controversial, it's just too painfully average a little bit. I do push. I think if you want a gameplay first experience version of Skyrim, it's a good game. But what games does it compare it to when you pull this up on the store page? Skyrim, Baldur's Gate 3, Black Myth Wukong, all of those I would recommend ahead of this game. We live in an era, since I'm getting the last word here, I think this is important for me to say, because this has a lot to do with my philosophy as a video gamer. We live in an era where you don't have time to play anything less than a 10 out of 10 game. We have so many games, and there's only so many hours in the day, that if you're playing a 9 out of 10 game, it feels like a 1 out of 10 game. Right. Because you could be playing a 10 out of 10 game. They're out there for you. They make, you look at the release schedules, every week, hundreds of games, right? Like you're coming out, and some of these are going to be 10 out of 10s. And so when I see a game like this, that I would say is about 7.5 to 8 out of 10, which it looks like the reviews are right in line with what I say, I can't recommend that to almost anybody because it's right next to a 10 out of 10 game, right? Like Sworn just came out. I can't recommend this over Sworn. It's not a bad game, but it's not amazing.
Right. That makes sense. And as Hody said, he gets the last word. So let me close this out. I guess technically I get the last word closing it out.
Go, take it.
So from what I'm hearing and what I would agree with, Avowed's tale is a mixed bag. It's a decent game, dicey vibes. However, sales that may whisper, louder than must play, as Hody just said. Conservatives can swing swords elsewhere. The industry's woke drift isn't every title. However, this one's baggage stinks enough for many conservatives to skip. I align with Hody. If it's a 7 out of 10 and there's 3 or 4 10 out of 10s with my limited time, that's what I'm gravitating to. Obsidian may have laid an egg, but it was their own selfishness that may have killed this egg from hatching and growing. Let's hope Obsidian sticks around to maybe eventually give us another Fallout New Vegas. But until then, we are recommending skip it. And with that, Hody, let the audience know where they can find you, who you are, why you exist. Give us a lowdown.
I'm Hody Johns at the Hodeman on X or Twitter. You can find me at Hody Johns on Facebook as well. I run the Love First Christians Discord group if you're interested in some religious talk. If you're more into my political talk, you can find me with Big John on the Free for All on this channel, Grumblings Media, on Thursday nights. And that's why I am here. I am here at the service of our Lord and, of course, William de Pilar.
And I'm in the service of my wife and dogs. And with that, do not forget to like and share this clip. You can find this clip at grumblingsmedia.com, as well as our latest, The Red, White, and Rude, where Hody and I talk everything from Captain America, The Brave New World, to the gaming industry as a whole, in the magazine industry versus the influencers. You will enjoy that. You can find us on YouTube, Rumble, Apple, Spotify, and Pandora under the handle Grumblings Media. Until next time, my friends, I am William de Pilar for Hody Johns. This is a rude clip, and I bid you adieu.
Hey everybody, this is Big John from Grumblings Media, and I just want to say thank you for watching our content. If you want to support our efforts here at Grumblings Media, just smash the subscribe button right here, totally free, or just go ahead and consume more of our great content. Click either one of these two boxes.